everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Chicago Sports Podcast. We are the Monsters of the Madhouse, and boy, do we have a monster show for you today. We got a monster contract to talk about. We got fantasy football to talk about. We got training camp to talk about. We're going to make this thing exciting, and we want to bring you guys along for the ride. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We got Kyle and Brian in the house. What's going on, fellas?
What's happening, man? How are you?
Living the dream. Very excited about this new contract. We got DJ Moore here for the next 6 years. That is super awesome. Before we get into anything, I want to make a correction because there's been a lot of people saying here that this is the largest contract the Chicago Bears have ever signed. That is actually not true because I believe it's Khalil Mack still has the largest contract ever for the Chicago Bears. This is the largest extension for the Chicago Bears in Chicago Bears history. So moving forward here, we're gonna celebrate our guy before we talk to him. We're gonna throw on a little 2 minutes of all of his highlight images from last season. So let's get into it right after we take a look at this awesome highlight. Guys, after checking that out, is this guy worth every penny or what? Talk to me.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I was most happy about that contract is it's seriously $7.5 million less than Justin Jefferson. I know he's not on that level, but I mean, usually one guy, it doesn't matter if they're on that level or not. I mean, we've seen that from that Jordan Love fiasco thing that they just did. He ain't worth more than Patrick Mahomes, but he still took more money.
That's right.
DJ Moore didn't pull that. He didn't pull that string. So I love it. I mean, I love every bit of it.
Yeah,
I think it's an amazing contract extension. I mean, we talked about it on the CSP podcast before when we were talking about Keenan Allen and if the Bears should extend him or not. And I think we all agreed that we were more concerned about DJ Moore. I mean, he's younger, he's in the prime of his career, and he's one of the best receivers the Bears have ever had, if you look at his statistics last year. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but he's coming in, like Brian said, he's still coming in at third overall in guarantees. I think he's eighth overall in annual contract salary for wide receivers. So it's not like the Bears overpaid him. He's consistently one of the top receivers in the NFL, and that's with never having consistent quarterback play once in his career.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Justin Fields, but just I don't believe that DJ Moore has reached his peak or what he can be. I think that the best is still to come. Just another guy that Ryan Poles is locked up to join this young core. You know, you got Cole Kmet, Darnell Wright, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Caleb Williams, Braxton Jones. I mean, you can really start to see his plan coming together here now, guys.
Oh no, you got him and Rome. I mean, Rome's locked up for 5 years. DJ Moore's locked up for 6. You got Cole Kmet locked up for 4. I mean, that's a good start right there. I mean,
Caleb Williams for 5. Yeah.
Out of the park.
Yeah, one of the things that, in this deal that DJ Moore signed, which is very friendly right now, until CeeDee Lamb signs, he's the 7th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. He'll drop to 8 when that contract gets done. Maybe even 9 with Ayuk, but I think Ayuk should be very similar to DJ Moore. I think the one thing that everybody in this whole mess and this whole rebuild is think about all the money that Poles cleared off from Pace and then rebuilt this thing brick by brick with good contracts, building this new Bears society culture, you want to call it. We now have Jalen Johnson locked up, Cole Kmet locked up, DJ Moore locked up. This is Tevin Jenkins. This is a Tevin Jenkins comment right here, guys. Hey, if you perform, I'll pay you. Ryan Poles has demonstrated that with these guys that he signed. So I'm very, very impressed with Ryan Poles as a GM right now, man. He's blowing my mind.
Yeah, and even some of the moves he made that Bears fans first questioned, like, for instance, the Montez Sweat trade. When they traded for Montez Sweat, we knew that Montez Sweat and his agent was going to have all the leeway and all the leverage in those contract talks. And people thought that he paid too much for a 4-year, $98 million extension. And then we saw the impact that Montez Sweat had on this team last year, and all those Bears fans weren't preaching the same thing after that.
100%. Here's a great question, because the Bears have long been mocked for having awful receiver statistics through the history of this league. So Johnny Morris right now sits at 5,059, if I remember correctly. So doing some simple math here, DJ Moore, after 1,300 yards last year, needs 617 yards per year during this contract to become the Chicago Bears all-time leading receiver. I think he's going to smoke that by the end of this deal. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think he beats it within 3 more years. I was just thinking, when you're saying that, I can't think of the last receiver the Bears actually extended. Not counting Jeffrey's or Alshon Jeffrey, his franchise tag. I can't think of one in within the last 20 years at least that they've extended. I mean, they traded
Marshall. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they've had little extensions, but I understand what you're saying. But I think they did actually extend Equanimus St. Brown when he was on the team. I mean, I know you're. Yeah. I know you're saying like an actual splash player that's a winner for the Chicago Bears. Yeah, no, I can't think of one in recent history. No.
Yeah.
Hey, really quick, let's send a couple shouts out. We got Simply Me in the house, Bruja in the house, Aunt Mass in the house. Thanks for joining us, fellas. Hey, in a little bit, we want to get interactive with you guys. Got any questions about?
Any comments? Can we get them on? Can you put them on the screen?
I can try.
Can you kind of interact with these guys a little bit? We really appreciate you guys watching, man, as always.
Yeah, let me see if I can work on that here in a second. Give me 1 second on that one. I lost my train of thought there too. No worries. We'll pick it right back up. We'll pick it right back up here. DJ Moore is a national treasure to me, guys. This guy's comical, and he seems as though he's really loosening up. Now he's a quadrillionaire. I love the fact that he signed this contract and decided to take his family to Popeyes. I just found that to be so classic. Dude, I've just got $110 million. Let's go to Popeyes.
8-piece bucket, right?
That's right. But I really loved. He shared a couple things. I'm gonna throw a couple of quick little snippets from his interview that he had today just to touch on this guy. We're gonna throw him, and then we'll go off.
I gave you my reaction. I don't care. When I first got the call, I was like, oh shit. But then I was just like, new beginnings, new everything. So I just took it on with a head full of steam with my family, and we was all just bought in. Once we got here, it was no looking back. Like, we here now, like, for the long haul, for real, for real.
Was the all shit part because you didn't know?
No, because let me give you this. Because we had just moved into a house, so it was like, dang, we got traded. So I was just like, coming down the driveway, got the phone call. Yeah, you've been traded. Boom. Pose called me. Hey, we're glad to have you. So I had to change my whole mindset. I was like, all right, I'll be there. And that's how that went.
Hold on.
Oh, my gosh, yesterday. If you ask anybody, that's probably the turntest locker room I ever been a part of. It was going berserk when everybody got back to their phone and seen what happened. So they was wondering why I left walkthroughs last night, and they figured it out as soon as they got back. It's pretty cool.
What was that? Describe the scene.
I can't do that for you. I can't do that for you.
What you saw?
Oh, champagne showers. I'm going to walk off on that one.
Thank you.
This guy, I'll tell you, him going in that interview saying that the locker room was so excited that he got this extension, excited that he got paid and earned. Is this just, again, another example of the new culture that's on the lakefront in Chicago? Kyle, Brian?
Go ahead, Brian.
Kind of hard to say. I think it's just been a thing that's implemented. I guess it's recent. With Ryan Poles, he's the one bringing in this culture. They all seem to be, happy to have each other. I feel like they probably did something similar. Jalen Johnson got his extension. Yeah. They seem to love that guy too. He's always been my favorite since he's been in the league. Jalen Johnson, I've always had a soft spot for that guy. So, I would have if I was in the locker room, root for that dude. But, Ryan Poles just, I think he's just the catalyst for all this. I can't say it's the players. I really think it's the GM.
Yeah, if anything, throughout this process, through the last few years, Ryan Poles, since he got here, he's been very consistent. We've seen him avoid guys like Jalen Carter because they had personal issues, or he thought maybe they'd be a distraction in the locker room. And then you see him extending guys like DJ Moore, who obviously is a locker room favorite. If Ryan Poles time and time again talks about character, talks about how he wants to build a team with good morals, good guys who are good teammates, guys who hold each other accountable, guys who work hard, smart players, and he's just proven it time and time again. DJ Moore seems to be one of the favorites on this team. He's kind of got that personality that, like Javier Baez had for the Cubs. He seems to be like kind of rambunctious, outgoing, but relatively quiet when you see him on the field. But man, he just seems like the consummate professional. I love those little snippets about him talking about the locker room and oh shit, I'm getting traded and all that stuff. I just love it. I can listen to him all day, man.
Yeah, I think he was friends with the owner's daughter too in Carolina, and I think she was pretty upset that he got traded when he did. I think she went to her dad and threw all kinds of a fit.
Well, it looks like to me that besides Caleb Williams, if he pans out, DJ Moore was the best part of that Carolina trade. If I was a Panthers fan, that'd be the part of the trade that hurt me the worst. Maybe even a little bit more than drafting Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, at least to this point, because I think there's still a lot on question marks around Bryce Young. But man, losing DJ Moore, just as if your team's not going to be a competitive team, they're not going to be a good team in the NFL, you have to have those guys you want to at least root for and watch every Sunday, right? And I think DJ Moore was probably one of the top three in Carolina there. Sean, you got no volume.
You got volume on you.
Oh, I got muted somehow. I don't know how that happened. I love the fact that this nucleus is growing together, man. And you still have a young Darnell Wright that's coming up. Just the last couple of drafts. This is really special, man. We're really in the midst of what looks like. Now, they still have to go out there and perform and win football games. And all this right now is really special. We're baking a really nice cake. We're putting the cherry on top. We still have to go out and win football games. And, looking at training camp, we switch over to training camp here a little bit. It seems as though everything we expected out of Caleb Williams, he's been doing in training camp thus far, hitting the throws. I mean, he had a really nice throw to DJ Moore over Tyreek Stevenson's shoulder, and DJ gave him the deuces. I was like, that was awesome. He's doing it. And really quick, Bruja, that would be a really smart idea.
I was going to say, shout out to Bruja for look out, DJ about to sign a huge endorsement deal with Popeyes. That would be awesome.
I read that and immediately thought of his Chipotle deal.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So nonetheless, as we switch over to training camp a little bit, it seems as though we have a lot of guys not practicing. One name that continues to be a familiar name is Nate Davis, and I know Bates has been filling in for him, and Waldron came out the other day and said if he's healthy, that's our guy. He's our starting right guard, and I hope that's camp speak, because you're building this culture. I think you have to earn your spot on this roster, not just be given him, because I don't think Nate Davis has earned anything on this team as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, guys. We don't like to speculate on this show, but man, this is starting to be like beating a dead horse here, right? I don't know what is going on with Nate Davis. I don't know if now he's injured or he's got more personal issues. And, I'm not taking away anything from the fact that he had a death in the family last year. That's terrible. It'd be hard for anybody to go to work after something like that. But, man, it just seems like overall this guy just does not want to practice. And, for Ryan Poles signing this guy at the beginning of last year for a 3-year, $30 million deal, this is a pretty intricate part of the Chicago Bears, especially since the Bears really don't have a center right now. I mean, I'm not saying that Shelton or Bates can't turn out to be that guy at center, but right now the interior of the offensive line looks like the biggest problem for the Chicago Bears, and that's not good for a rookie quarterback, right, guys?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was looking over the cap too. I mean, you can't cut him. I mean, if you cut him, you're only saving $600,000. I mean, it's not beneficial to the team just to release him. I mean, if you find a trade partner, you save 9.3. But I don't know who's going to trade for him. I mean, we bought the hook, bit the hook when we got him in free agency. We wouldn't have to give up anything but money, I just don't think the guy's got much of a spine, honestly. I don't believe that he's that fragile. I think it's one of them things is, you go, training camp, you fake a groin or a hamstring, something they can't prove. You sit out and he just doesn't practice. I mean,
do you guys think this has anything to do with the fact that he just got his first major payday in the NFL? I mean, it's because I've listened to interviews when the trade or when the signing happened, the free agency signing happened, and all of his teammates and coaches from Tennessee had nothing but good things to say about him. And we saw his Pro Football Focus. He obviously struggled more in pass protection than he did in run protection, but I mean, by all accounts, he was a hard worker and he was a leader and he was a beast and a dog and he had that fight in him. And then he gets to the Bears and it's like, where's that guy?
Where's that guy? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I know they threw a fit when they had voluntary mini camp his first year, and he didn't show up to that. He said, what it told some reporter or something, I can't remember who the name was, but he said, I never show up to voluntary mini camp or work out on my own. He goes, always have, or something like that. But who's to say if he's actually working out, he might very well give him the benefit of the doubt there. But I mean, it's just nice to have new players show up to the team. So, I mean, that was before the death in his family. So,
correct. And, I also did read he wasn't a big practicer for Tennessee either. And, I mean, maybe that's just the guy. I don't know. It seems different. It just seems different. It seems something's wrong with this.
I mean, if that information was out there and it was before we made the free agent signing, it was a known thing that Nate Davis refused to practice. That was not a good signing by Ryan Poles. I mean,
no, definitely
guys, we this is not just with sports. We all know that practice makes perfect in whatever you do, and especially for something like an offensive lineman, because they have to have that cohesiveness. These guys have to play together. We've seen the Bears line struggle time and time again because it's always a different offensive line, right? The last few years, I feel like every game is a new offensive line. I think Bears fans are sick of it, and they like to just see one stretch, just 1 month stretch where they have the same 5 guys in the line. Because honestly, if you go back and look at the Bears offensive line from last year, they're really not as bad as I think Justin Fields made them look. Because I know that's no disrespect to Justin Fields, but he held onto the ball for a long time and he caused a lot of sacks. And if you look at the line as a whole, like a Pro Football Focus, they're actually somewhere in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think they were 11th or something like that. I believe.
Warren Economics has looked it up. Vrabel hated Nate Davis.
Yeah, it was not. I don't dispute that at all. I'm sure he did. I mean, it was not Mike Vrabel who was on 670 with that interview last year or the year prior when they were talking about Nate Davis. That wouldn't surprise me at all if Coach Vrabel hated Nate Davis, because we all know that Coach Vrabel has a reputation. He's a hard worker, and he probably only accepts hard workers.
Hey boys, as we're talking about training camp, and it was a very light day from everything I read ahead of what is the eve of the Hall of Fame game, where our founder, Brandon Trax Hyatt, happens to be out right now in Canton, Ohio. Just want to send a shout out. Brandon, you want to check in with us? Pop on, give us some updates from Canton. If you're out there, feel free. Love to have you. Also, check out the Chicago Sports Podcast 2.0. He is posting awesome videos all around Canton, Ohio right now. And as we speak about this game, guys, we have to say, for the second time, the Bajancy is open. We're going with Tyson Bagent. We know tomorrow's going to be very vanilla, very relaxed. There's not going to be disguising coverages or anything like that. It's just going to be happy to see the Chicago Bears on the football field. And I think for a lot of us, we're going to be looking at some of these backup offensive linemen who might be starters during the regular season. Before we get into this, should we go with grind our face off?
You have to go.
Should everyone see this?
You have to see it.
I love Tyson Bagent after this. This is my favorite interview right now, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, I didn't really think too much about it. I was too busy grinding my absolute face off in the off season. But whatever they were going to do, that's completely up to them. I can't control that. But yeah, I was just excited to come back. Whoever was going to be in the QB room was going to be in the QB room. Nothing was going to change on my end though. But yeah, like you said, it feels good to know that they have some, that they have confidence in me, and that that they like what I was able to do last year, and hopefully they're being able to see the strides that I've made in the off season and going into year 2.
What was the hardest grinding your face off thing that you did?
June 19th, shout out to my one of my best friends, Derek Gallagher, 1 mile burpee broad jump. Hour and 7 minutes. Let's go.
Is that for a mile?
Burpee broad jump. 1 mile.
How many calories do you burn out?
I don't know. I ate a lot after that. It was nice.
What would you eat afterwards? Where'd you go after that?
I went to Betty's. Shout out to Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Went to Betty's restaurant. I think I just got 6 eggs and bacon with some toast. I might not be getting better necessarily at football when I'm doing a workout like that. However, just the mental edge that it gives me, finding out, what I can endure versus what the next man can endure, in a sense gives me a little mental edge when I show up to things like this and people start complaining about our schedule. I can kind of have somewhere in the back of my head that I've done things far worse than this. That I can handle really kind of anything that's thrown at me and be able to just keep the main thing, let it flow off the shoulders, and just kind of, react to what happens next. So.
Absolutely. Let's grind our face off, boys. I love that.
Love Tyson Bagent. Love that guy. The apple did not fall far from the tree with that guy, guys. He is just like his father.
Yeah, his father. If you guys have never seen his father, YouTube some of his videos, because his dad's an absolute character as well.
That's between him and Tom Pelissero.
Yeah. Right arm world wrestling or world arm wrestling champ.
Yeah, but Tyson Bagent, man, I think he's got a CrossFit line and everything right now with Rogue. I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years, so he's beloved in the CrossFit community. Tyson Bagent is. So, really? I understand that what he's been going through on these workouts. Some of these are terrible.
Yeah. I love his work ethic, man. And you know what? Nothing I saw on the football field last year from him was like, man, this guy shouldn't be on the football field. He managed the game well. He was very competent between the ears. And I think we talked about this a bunch. He looked a lot more competent than Justin Fields when he was out there, and he did go 2-2 in his 4 starts. So he got us a couple victories, and I'm glad he's out there. And who is it? Brett Rippon is the other guy. He's
out of the Broncos or something like that.
We'll probably see him at some point tomorrow.
Oh, they also have the undrafted free agent.
Austin Reed.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 We'll probably see him tomorrow as well. Are you guys at all? I know you cut me off last time we were on, Kyle. Wouldn't even let me get it out. But are you guys happy we have no starters?
Yeah, 100%. I don't want Caleb Williams anywhere near the Hall of Fame extra preseason game for the Chicago Bears and Houston Texans, and C.J. Stroud for that matter. I cannot wait to see this matchup in week 2 of the regular NFL season. It's going to be a great Sunday night prime time in Houston. We're about to see what Caleb Williams is actually made of. I do not want anybody of significance getting hurt for the Chicago Bears in the Hall of Fame game, especially as of recent years, the Bears have had a lot more injuries than I can remember in the past. I mean, I feel like last year we were kind of like the new 49ers, where every single time we had a game, 6 guys walked off the field, especially the secondary. So I'd like to see them keep all these guys as healthy as possible.
I agree 99.9%. The only 0.1% of me just wants Caleb Williams to go in there and hand the ball off one time, pull him out so his career can start and end with the Hall of Fame.
Start in the Hall of Fame and end in the Hall of Fame, right?
Start with the Hall of Fame, end with the Hall of Fame. That's all I want. Just hand it off, go home.
Brian, knowing the Chicago Bears with the backup offensive line, and he'd go to hand that ball off and get his head knocked off.
Right.
Well, I will tell you this. We are going to see a lot of Felton. I heard tomorrow, so I guess that's going to be kind of cool. Got to see the first hype video for Hard Knocks, which I thought they did a really nice job with. I wonder, did you guys get to see he was on All Facts No Breaks podcast, Mercedes Lewis, and he was talking about Caleb Williams. And he really said through this first week of training camp, he does not look like a rookie. He looks like he can make every throw. And per his quote, he can make every throw. He's a little Aaron Rodgers-ish. He's just a little different. Even within the first week, he's doing things you just don't see from young guys. This is what? He's been in the league 14 years. He's been around Aaron Rodgers. I'm taking that to heart, saying, man, this guy may be ready week 1 to be the guy we want him to be. And I'm sure he'll have his rookie struggles through the season. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's going to be, 5,000-yard passer. All rookies do. But I'm really liking everything I'm hearing. I mean, Jalen Johnson was on a podcast, said the same thing. The defense is recognizing his talents, his abilities. I mean, again, this culture, this new Chicago Bears, dude, I can't be more excited. So I want to get on here today and talk about all this shit.
Right.
Well, Ryan Poles and the coaching staff certainly have done their job to make sure that Caleb Williams has almost everything he needs to be a successful rookie in the NFL. Even to the point where they brought in a guy like Keenan Allen, who's a veteran, a seasoned veteran, a consummate professional, kind of like Andrew Luck had with Reggie Wayne when he went to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think we all know that Caleb Williams is going to have his rookie struggles. He's going to throw passes he probably should not throw, and that there's only one way to learn, right, guys? You have to make these mistakes. But I fully expect the Bears to be a very competitive football team this year, and due in large part to Caleb Williams.
Our buddy on NFL this morning, why can't his name's Jesus? It wasn't Schrager. Kyle Brandt. He picked the Bears this morning to be 13-4. Live on TV.
Rich Johnson picked us to go to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Brian, so I can't remember. I think it was the other guy, Adam Rank. It might have been Adam Rank. It was one of these guys. They just said last week they would not be surprised if the Bears could make it to the NFC Championship game because it would only be one game better than C.J. Stroud last year. Do you guys think this is remotely possible? I know we're all excited and hyped up. I am not on that train. I still have the Bears at 10 wins. Let's be honest. I'm just going to be honest. But ball bounces the right way. Caleb Williams develops a little bit faster. Can we see an NFC Championship game appearance? Possibly. Yeah,
one injury to anybody that's pivotal on the 49ers and NFC is wide open. Brock Purdy goes down with an injury. God forbid. I ain't wishing that on anybody, but it just opens everything up. 49ers, they're only one team in the NFC Championship team or championship game to begin with. So, who's to say it, it can't be them and the Bears, but you can see it. I mean, as though if Caleb Williams is who they say he is, and I mean, you try to think of who. I heard on Sirius XM they're talking about Jared Goff. They said he might be, the best quarterback in the NFC, if not he's top 3. I started thinking, is like, who are the other two? It's like, well, I mean, you have to lean towards Stafford because they traded Goff for Stafford. They'd rather have him. So obviously, but who are the other ones? I mean, you got Kirk Cousins, Dak. I don't know.
Well, Jalen Hurts would definitely be in that conversation.
Jalen Hurts.
It's definitely, we've seen crazier things happen, right? It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Bears could end up being a very good football team and end up in an NFC Championship game. I would just say I like to let's pump the brakes a little bit. First of all, I think the Houston Texans were a lot better than we thought they were last year, and I think DeMeco Ryans is probably going to end up being a better coach than Matt Eberflus. There's still a ton of question marks around the Chicago Bears team. First of all, the head coach. Second of all, how Shane Waldron's going to integrate his system, his scheme into this offense with the players we have here. And lastly, I mean, like you guys said, the offensive line right now is a question mark. If you, like Brian said, the Niners are one big injury away from falling out of the top 3 in the NFC. I mean, what happens if the Bears lose Montez Sweat? I mean, or the Bears lose Caleb Williams.
They lose Caleb Williams. Yeah.
These are things. I mean, it could happen. Injuries are tough to predict, and like we said, we don't like to speculate, but. I mean, I could see a scenario in which, especially with the Bears' schedule, if those teams end up being what the NFL thinks they're going to be, with finish about where the projections are, I can see a scenario where the Bears make a little bit of a deep playoff push.
Yeah. I mean, I can too. Anything can happen in the NFL, and that's why you play the games, right? I mean, I look at it and say those first 10 games, how they come out of that playing first and second year quarterbacks are going to be huge, with the exception of C.J. Stroud. If they come out of that 7-3, I mean, if they come out 8-2, I mean, if you really look at it, you take Houston and the Rams. The Bears can beat every other team if you take those 2 out. Mm-hmm. Do you see?
I think the Bears are capable of beating the Rams. It's just what I expect with the rookie quarterback and a young team like this is they're probably going to lose games they're supposed to win. They're probably going to win games they're supposed to lose. I would be happy if the Bears came out 6-4, but I'd love to see them go 7-3, 8-2, something like that. Like you said, you have to consider that there's probably going to be some injuries. There's probably going to be some rookie struggles with Caleb Williams. I think when we did the schedule on the show here, I projected them to be 6-4 coming out of those first 10 games. But I mean, that would be great for them because me personally, I think unless Sam Darnold blows my mind in some way, shape, or form, I think the Vikings are 2 gimme wins. So that puts the Bears at 8 wins right there. You squeak out 2 more and you're in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. I want to get into this, and Kyle, you wanted me to touch on this as well before we get into our fantasy football segment for the evening. DJ Moore and Jalen Johnson were both left off the NFL's top 100 list, which I find absolutely absurd. For number one, I don't know. A lot of people say Sauce Gardner is the best cornerback in the league. Jalen Johnson seems to be right there. I mean, let's be honest here. I'm very disappointed in this top NFL 100 not having these 2 gentlemen on the list. And I know, Kyle, you really wanted to give some props to a certain special player. So,
yeah, I mean, not only is Jalen Johnson left off the top 100 list, but ESPN recently had some top 10 rankings at each position. And they had Jalen Johnson ranked number 8, and I still think that's an injustice. I mean, they're saying he's in the top 10, and I still don't think that's good enough. If you guys look at the year that Jalen Johnson had last year, it was historical. He allowed on per snaps per cover for him, so plays where he's on the field and he's covering one of the receivers. He allowed a total of 195 yards on the season to the wide receivers he was covering. The record for the best passer rating allowed by a cornerback in one season was Darrelle Revis at 29.1, I believe. Jalen Johnson was right there. His passer rating he allowed was 31. I mean, I think he probably is the second best single season from any coverage corner in the NFL, and he reminds me a lot of Darrelle Revis. Now, obviously, I think these guys, the reason they knock him back a little bit, I don't know about the top 100, but maybe eighth on the list of top 10, is because Jalen Johnson has dropped some opportune interceptions. We've seen that before. We've talked about how he struggled to bring in those interceptions. But man, I don't think there's a quarterback in the NFL that likes throwing towards Jalen Johnson, and I don't think there's a team in the NFL that wouldn't love to have them on their team. The Bears, you talk about DJ Moore being a great contract. We could talk about that Jalen Johnson contract all day, man. That might be one of the best contracts in Chicago Bears history.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you think, man?
Yeah, this is what I was thinking with the top 100 as far as that goes. When I look at these rankings, I question how much these players are actually watching other teams play that aren't on primetime. You know, if you don't get overexposure, I don't think they're going to vote for you because I don't think that they're watching them. You know, if they're not specifically on one of these teams that are playing against Jalen Johnson, are they actually seeing him? You know, it's kind of one of them things. That's kind of in my mentality. I don't know if it's accurate. They could be watching every game. I don't know. But it's just kind of how I feel about it. I mean, the Bears players are constantly overlooked. I mean, Roquan never even got a Pro Bowl bid, you know, until, you know, he went to the Ravens. And then all of a sudden he turns into the best linebacker in the NFL, according to all these analysts. It's like he's doing the same thing there he did at Chicago. I mean, he's no different of a guy. He's just getting, you know, he was just getting overlooked there. You know, I mean, there's just no other way for me to spin it in my mind. I can't get over it. That's
a great point, man, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't see in any way, shape, or form how TJ Edwards was left off that Pro Bowl team last year. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing to me. I believe that TJ Edwards, through 9 weeks in the season, had the record for the most solo tackles in the history of the NFL. Now, obviously, the Bears defense had their struggles and their woes early, so the Bears their linebackers were doing more work than they probably should. I mean, guys like Jalen Johnson, you don't really want to hear their name a whole lot, right? Because that means that they're not being thrown to that often. But still, I mean, you can't take away from what TJ Edwards did last year. That's a great point, Brian. I think the Bears, it's probably not even just the Bears, but struggling teams in particular in the NFL just get snubbed a lot in these Pro Bowls and these top 100 and all these voting lists.
No, 100%. Boy, and as you mentioned, TJ Edwards, really quick, he's only got 2 years left on his deal. If he performs at this level, he might be a guy the Bears might want to consider re-upping next.
Yeah,
as his contract's going to be set to expire, you know.
Yeah. Focus on Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah, and when you say Tevin Jenkins, I think Tevin Jenkins, we all know how we all feel. If he's on the field, we think he's really good at his position. The problem is his best availability is your best quality, and he's never available. If you miss 6 games a year, that's a problem. So hopefully he could stay on the field, give us a good season, and earn a contract. Still maybe a little weary on that, though, because his overall history is not one of great health. So
yeah, it's those players, those type of players who missed a lot of time, guys like Kyle Long when he was here with the Bears. It's tough, man, because I do honestly believe that when he's on the field, I think Tevin Jenkins is one of the top 5 guards in the NFL. 100%. Definitely in the NFC, no doubt about it. But like you said, Sean, man, if you're missing, I think what was the last year, he missed 4 games, I think it was. I mean, eventually, unless the Bears have some amazing depth at the offensive line, like teams like the Cowboys, just like these guys have to stay on the field. And I agree with you, man. It's going to be. I would like to be a fly on the wall for those contract negotiations, right? You know, Tevin Jenkins is going to be like, I'm one of the best in the NFL, and the Bears are going to be like, yeah, for like 10 weeks of the season. Yeah.
You also missed 16 games in 3 seasons.
Brian, what do you think, man? Do you think the Bears are going to extend Tevin Jenkins or?
Well, what did he say? They were going to evaluate him during the bye week, I believe.
Yeah.
Coming into this, I was thinking they were either going to keep Nate Davis or Tevin Jenkins because they can easily get out of Nate Davis's contract after this season. It's a quick buyout. You know, it's a little bit of, you know, minimal dead money. But I think Nate Davis is actually making that point for him. As long as he's healthy by the bye week, I think they're going to extend him. I know there's some available guards as of right now. I don't know if they're going to get franchised, get signed, or anything like that. But I know it was that Trey. I believe his name's Trey Smith for Kansas City. I think he's a free agent after this year. So I mean that would be a good thing. But honestly, I think they're going to extend him just because Nate Davis is just not a team guy.
You know, that's a great question by Brujas Eben there. I mean, if he's somewhat healthy, is that a guy you franchise next year? You know, I mean,
I don't think he's worth that.
Contracts, everyone's locked up. You're gonna You could possibly do that.
Yeah, that certainly could be an option because honestly, I don't think the franchise tag for guards is very high. Now, do you guys know could the Bears? They can't franchise Keenan Allen, right?
I don't think so because of his
I-
veteran status.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think it's the franchise tag is usually just attached to the rookie contract, right? I think once you sign your second, because if they're going to agree to their second contract or their third contract of their career, they're probably going to say, "Hey, man, if you guys want me to play here, the franchise tag is not an option in that contract." I'm assuming it's not, but yeah, I mean, if not, I'd say Tevin Jenkins is certainly one of the best candidates for sure.
I don't know what the number is, so it's gonna,
No, what were you saying, Brad?
I said I don't know what that number is. I mean, like you said, if it's pretty low for a guard, like you said it was, say in the $11 million range, then sure, why not? Just make sure he proves himself healthy another year. But
my guess would be 1 year. I think probably. What do you think, Sean? Guards a 1 year, $8 million, 1 year, $9 million.
Something right around there. I mean, would you even want to pay Tevin Jenkins that much? Are you talking about on the franchise tag?
Yeah, if
on the franchise tag, yes. Okay, gotcha. That's something I could look up really quick and find out what that is. I do like Dante here. We pay Sanborn, and can Noel Sewell be healthy? I think Noel Sewell, in my personal opinion, and we'll see what happens. I think they might try and turn him into some kind of a rush specialist, an edge specialist. I don't know if he's suited every day. He had a really good college career. He's very fast. And he's very strong. I don't know what his big drawback is as far as being an every down player. I haven't studied him enough.
I think it's coverage. I think coverage is, I believe that's where they say that he seems to struggle with covering athletic tight ends or slot receivers, which wouldn't surprise me because not a lot of linebackers can keep up with those guys like Julian Edelman and Gronkowski and those. But
Bruja here on the subject of Keenan. If he stays healthy and has great production, I like giving him a 2-year, $50 million deal. At 33, 32, I don't know if I want to do that. Personally, if we could get him for 1 year at a good price, I'd take him because you still have Tyler Scott who could possibly be growing into that role. And there's a guy we drafted 9th overall this year that's going to be looking to take off in that spot next year. So 2 years, $50 million.
Unless he agrees to sign a 1 year extension, guy. I don't personally believe that Keenan Allen will be here next year. I think Keenan Allen he's going to be 33 going into next season. I think he's looking for his kind of what they call the retirement contract, where that last 3 years, $60 million contract extension. I just don't think the Bears are willing to do that. When Ryan Poles got here, we've said this numerous times on the show. When Ryan Poles got here, he said, "I do not sign. We won't sign old and we won't sign injured." And I don't think signing a guy in his mid-30s to a contract extension for $50 million is necessarily a good idea, especially when the rest of the team is so young.
I think Dante just answered our question. Franchise tag is the top 5 at position. That's $20 million for guards.
Yeah, I think I was.
Yeah, but I would not franchise tag Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah,
I'd be looking at seeing if I can get him for $10 million on a deal or something. That seems oof. Yeah,
but he does have to play 10 games to get all that money.
Yeah, you know what? You could put some escalators in there like that. Hey man, you want to win? You want to get paid? You got to play. No, what we got? I think I agree. I agree here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Roman Dunze looks the part. I mean, he's showing out in camp thus far. I mean, and I think Keenan Allen, I think this trade for Keenan Allen was to find the veteran that can help the rookie quarterback be in the right positions in the right times. Timing routes, this is strictly it. I think 1 year, Caleb gets his wheels under him. It's sayonara.
Yeah, and I mean, how many times, especially with this position? I mean, first of all, we still don't know if Tyler Scott's going to come into his own and be a good player in the NFL. So he could end up being the number 3 next year when Rome Odunze steps into that number 2 role or even number 1 role if he ends up being better than DJ Moore. But how many times have we seen? I mean, it seems like the wide receiver is a position in the draft that these teams seem to find the diamonds in the rough most often. I think Cooper Kupp was a 3rd round pick. I think Tyreek Hill was a 5th round pick. I mean, there's a whole list of guys we can go through. I think at one point in the last season, the top 10 paid wide receivers in the NFL, I don't think any of them were 1st round picks, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that the stat we were talking about last year, Sean?
Well, run that by me one more time. I'm sorry.
I think last year, at some point before these guys like Justin Jefferson, all these guys started getting extensions, I think at one point last year, the top 10 paid wide receivers in the NFL, I don't think a single one of them was a first-round draft pick. So I don't think you
you're
have to
right.
hold on to Keenan Allen. I think you can go get another guy. The Bears, remember, the Bears have an extra pick from Indianapolis next year for that, or from Carolina next year for that trade for DJ Moore and Bryce Young. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bears, if they add a defensive end at some point, off a center or guard, and then focus on wide receiver.
You know, when I was looking through this, and I was very surprised because I think this guy's a pretty good route runner and possession receiver, to find out Hunter Renfrow was still a free agent and not signed. I mean, he was just drafted. He's still a young receiver, and he played pretty well in the Raiders. I mean, I'm not saying he's Justin Jefferson, but definitely worthy of a contract somewhere with somebody. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him picked up on the Chicago Bears, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, that's just me. But
yeah, I mean, the money would have to be right. The money would have to be right. I understand. The Bears, they're down to $12 million going into the season. I'm assuming at some point they're going to have to add a defensive end, especially if they start the season and they don't think that Austin Booker's progressing the way they want him to, and Marcus Walker continues to not be able to get sacks from the exterior of the defensive line. I think at some point the Bears are going to add a free agent for the defensive line. So, I mean, if a guy like Hunter Renfrow was cheap and was willing to play on a 1-year, $2 million deal, and then they decide they want to part ways with Velus Jones and Dante Pettis and upgrade that to Hunter Renfrow, I'd have no problem with that at all.
Yeah. I like Hunter Renfrow. That's just me, though.
I like him, but I watched very few Raiders games. I ain't gonna lie, so I don't really have a whole lot of experience with him. But I mean, I know he was coming out. He's pretty hot, pretty good route runner. I mean, coming out of the slot and all that. But I think he was having some fumbling issues for a while. I don't know if he ever solidified that or got that fixed, or he's just Velus Jones and just gonna still make a career out of it.
and as we speak of fantasy football, I think we're going to turn the page and get into some fantasy wide receivers. We're going to pay some bills here first because this is going to be sponsored by our friends at Fantasy Underground, or sorry, I got that wrong. Underdog Fantasy. Sorry about that. You guys go sign up. Underdog Fantasy. Use the code CSP. They match your first deposit of $100. There are tons and tons of fun games out there right now. Must be 18 or older. Follow the law. Have your parents sign up. No, I'm just kidding. But check out Underdog Fantasy. We're going to get into some fantasy wide receivers right now. I'm going to throw a tiered list up here. This was my own personal tiered list that I threw together, and I'm sure you guys aren't going to agree with it, but that's fine. This is what this is all about. So as we get into this here just a little bit, I'll clarify 1 through 4. For me, 1 through 4, I could almost take any one of the 3. I would leave Amon at 3 or 4. But CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably my top 4 fantasy wide receivers, and they're definitely my tier 1 going into the season. Kyle, Brian, educate me a little bit. I'll bust out some statistics on some of these guys. And our fans out there, our supporters, our loyal listeners and viewers, you guys got a name, throw it out. We'll get you some statistics on them. We're going to try and help you all win your fantasy league.
Well, I mean, I certainly agree that those 4 guys belong in the tier 1. I like to do the tiers when I do them personally. And obviously, guys, this is all different. You can do your fantasy football rankings however you like. But I like to do 6 players per tier. So for me personally, Justin Jefferson would have to be in tier 1. Probably even I'd probably even put him maybe above Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then for me, I think this year in particular, I know it's tough to say because he hasn't shown it in the last 2 years. But I think personally, Garrett Wilson is going to be a tier 1 fantasy receiver this year. With Aaron Rodgers coming back, they got Mike Williams on the other side now. They're going to take a little bit of attention away from Garrett Wilson. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with almost no quarterback play whatsoever, all 0. I mean, possibly last year one of the worst NFL offenses we've seen in a very long time. I do think Garrett Wilson will sneak his way up into that tier 1, but I do agree with all 4 of those guys: CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase. I don't necessarily not in that particular order, but right now I think that's definitely 100% correct.
Brandon
What do you-
or Brian?
Yeah, I agree with your top 4. Also with Kyle, I would move Garrett Wilson and AJ Brown actually up into the tier 1. Leave Justin Jefferson
Okay.
out. I do like that because I don't trust either one of them quarterbacks. It has nothing to do with Justin Jefferson. I think he's the best receiver in the league, but you got to put him in tier 2 for that reason. Mike Evans, I want to hate on that guy. I wouldn't take him in the first round, but I mean, he's flirting with tier 1, tier 2 kind of range. But
Sure.
I wouldn't take him in the first round, but that guy does nothing but produce. I mean, year after year, he's just going to play his way straight into the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, with Baker throwing him the ball, I mean, that's solid. I don't know if it's going to be Puka or Cooper Kupp on the Rams, but Stafford likes to throw to one guy. You know,
100%.
he's very much Justin Fields. You got to pick one of those two, you know, and kind of jump on it. So that's kind of why Puka's, not there for me as well. I love Amari Cooper. I don't know. Jerry Judy's there now, but he wasn't really great for Denver. He drops a lot of balls. I'm not quite sure how Watson's going to feel about that. So, but Amari Cooper does nothing but produce as well. As long as he stays on the field, he's getting there, 1,300 yards.
To back up, I'm going to touch on and throw some statistics and stats out there for us on Garrett Wilson, because I absolutely agree with you, Kyle. I think this guy can go nuclear. He's played 35 games in the NFL. He's never missed a game. Since coming into the league, he has more targets than Amron, more receptions than DJ Moore, more receiving yards than Keenan Allen. He's in his embeds metrics. He's first in route runs. He's 11th in total route wins. He has consecutive seasons of 80 receptions, 1,000 yards with quarterbacks Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, Mike White, Joe Flacco, Chris Streveler. I don't even remember that guy, which is widely impressive. His opportunity right now, he's fourth in target share since coming into the league, 6th in snap share, 7th in overall target share. Let's just say this guy right now is off the charts. If he gets a full season of Aaron Rodgers, I'm not going to say he's going to be number 1 overall, but he definitely can make a run at this.
That wouldn't surprise me. If you got a full season of healthy Aaron Rodgers, it would not surprise me at all if Garrett Wilson ended up being wide receiver fantasy number 1. And I also agree with almost everything that Brian said. The only reason I don't have A.J. Brown personally in my tier 1 is because I've had A.J. Brown in fantasy seasons. I had him last year in one of my leagues, and I had him when he was on the Titans in one of my leagues. And unfortunately, A.J. Brown, I love him. I think he's a great receiver, one of the top talents in the NFL, but he does have games where he kind of goes missing. He did at the end of last year. I know there's a lot of drama going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think actually, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you look at another reason that I don't like to put A.J. Brown in tier 1, and he would fall into that second tier for me, like I said, I try to do 6 for each tier. I believe that Devonta Smith actually had better numbers than A.J. Brown last year, if I'm not mistaken. And Devonta Smith, I think is
not receiving yards.
I mean, what about targets?
I'd have to look at the targets. I
think that Devonta Smith's only going to get better. I think this year would probably be the year that Devonta Smith will reach his prime, as they call it. And I think he's going to continue to dig into A.J. Brown's pockets there and take more of those targets away. Now, like I said, if the guys, this top 6 guys that I've already picked are gone, I have no problem putting A.J. Brown on my fantasy team.
Moving along here, I like A.J. Brown. I mean, he's 2,952 yards over the past 2 seasons on 194 receptions. That's just great fantasy production. He's the godfather to or vice versa with Jalen Hurts. They're like best friends. I'm sure he's going to look up. I think one of the things that hurt the Eagles the most and production started going down was when Dallas Goedert got hurt. That really, really hurt the Eagles offense last year. And with him back on the field, and I'm not disagreeing. I think Devonta Smith can have a really, really solid year. I'm still going to say alpha male. I'm taking A.J. Brown, and I'm going to keep him up there pretty tight to the top.
Yeah, I remember his numbers were pretty good. I was trying to make a case for DJ Moore getting snubbed the Pro Bowl. I was a little pissed off. I was like, sure, the guy he outscored AJ Brown with Devontae Smith on the other side, and he had more yards than DJ Moore did. So I was like, well, I can't really do that.
Well, Sean, let me throw my tier 2-6 at you and see what you think about that. Right. So, like I said, just me, guys. You do it. You do your fantasy rankings whatever you want. I try to do 6 players per tier, and that's for every position, not just wide receivers. But we talked about the top 6 already. So my second 6, like I said, I'd have AJ Brown in my second tier. Puka Nacua would make my second tier. Marvin Harrison Jr., I believe, just based off of opportunity and the skill set that we saw with him in college at Ohio State, I think he's going to find his way to somewhere around 1,300 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns. Devontae Adams would be in there, tier 2, and Mike Evans. And then if I had, was that 5 or 6? And then after that would be, for me personally, would be DJ Moore would be the numbers.
It is a good point. I forgot about Devontae Adams. I only like him though if Gardner Minshew's throwing to the ball. I don't trust Aiden O'Connell at all. If Gardner Minshew's there, he's going to have his guy, Michael Pittman Jr. He's a huge guy. I love that guy a lot. He's going to be good. But as with that, we got essentially the same people just jumbled.
Yeah. And I think most of us, especially guys who know the NFL and been watching football for years, I think a lot of our wide receiver lists, at least at the top 20, top 30, are probably going to look pretty similar. But obviously, guys, these are just like semantics. I mean, you any of the guys, the 6 guys we've talked about so far, you end up with any of those guys in your fantasy team, and good things will happen.
Too, and touching on Puka, and I know Kyle, you and I have been going back and forth on Puka a lot. I just think there's a massive comeback here. Last year with Cooper Kupp, he wasn't healthy. He still produced in that role. He's still Stafford's guy. When they were both on the field together, Kupp was still out producing Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua's numbers really took off when Kupp was gone. Kupp just came out in training camp and said, this is the healthiest he's felt in a very long time. If he could stay on the field, I think that production really is going to really hurt Puka. Not saying they both can't be 1,000-yard receivers. That's why I have Puka a little bit lower. He's still in my top 10, but I just jacked him down just a little bit because Cooper Kupp can't be denied. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL. The guy's always open. I just think there's going to be a lot to be said for Cooper Kupp this year as a bounce-back player.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree, Sean. I think if Cooper Kupp is healthy, that's a detriment to Puka Nacua. I think Puka Nacua is going to be a good receiver regardless, but for me, that's just a giant app. So, for me personally, I just probably expect Cooper Kupp to miss about a month of the NFL season, not necessarily in a row. But, he's a little bit older. He's been hit a lot. Cooper Kupp was leading the league in receptions for a long time. He's been hit a lot. He's a smaller guy. He's a smaller build. And I think if he does miss, let's say, 4 games in the season, then Puka Nacua is an absolute monster, and he may be worth tier 1 or even late or early tier 2 if Cooper Kupp does miss time and he gets those games like he did last year where he's going for 7 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. If he does that again, he's definitely worth the tier 2 pick. What do you think, Brian?
Definitely, yeah. Puka Nacua, he's just good at everything. The guy's solid. With Cooper Kupp coming back though, I do believe that he's got a stronger rapport with Matthew Stafford. Like I said, Matthew Stafford tends to lock in on people as far as his one guy. He's always had that Calvin Johnson. He had who's that other guy that he got from Cincinnati? I don't know when he was in Lions, but he locked in on him for a while. Marvin Jones or something like that. He was throwing to him. He always locked in on him, and then he went to L.A. and it's been Cooper Kupp ever since. And then Cooper Kupp gets hurt, you expose Puka Nacua, and then you just never know. Like with the health of that team though, Stafford, he's always been fragile too. If he goes, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua both slip into tier 6.
Then you got Stetson Bennett. I think Stetson Bennett's the backup there.
It's not good. Yeah,
that would not be good for anybody. Shout out to Dustin Jones real quick, guys. He says, you guys see Belichick is going to be doing a weekly fantasy show for Underdog Fantasy.
Yes.
I don't know if that's awesome or awful or I just don't know. I've heard Bill Belichick doing a little bit of that kind of media, ESPN stuff like that since he retired, obviously, or since they decided to part ways. And I don't know, man, there's some times where that guy talks and I'm like, man, Bill Belichick, this is the genius we've been watching for the last 20 years, and there's other times where he talks and I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? At the very least, I think if Belichick is kind of like, the latter, then maybe it'll be at least entertaining to watch him, right?
Yeah, he's a historian though. The guy knows his stuff. He just
Oh, for sure, very smart.
I just don't know if he's progressive thinking. You know,
Well,
he can't get with today. He can't get with today's time.
Brian, has the game passed him by?
The game is definitely passed when Tom Brady left him. He denied, he backed into Tom Brady, and he made a career out of it. I'll give him that. But,
All right, Sean, let's.
Quarterbacks he's had, he just couldn't pick them. So,
all right, Sean. So I've already done the top 12, which I think was for you would be your top 3 tier. So let's see that 4th tier again. Let's talk about that because I'll give you my 6th.
I got a question for you guys because this is a great mystery, and I have some statistics for it because there's been a lot. We talked about the Texans. We got the Texans in week 2. Going into fantasy, there's really 3 good pass catchers there. I have some really great statistics that were provided by our friend Mike Florio. He put together a nice little package on Tank Dell and Nico Collins, and I found it to be very interesting that in the 7 games they actually played together, the only big difference with those two, so in the 7 games they played together, Dell had 792 air yards, Collins 554. They Dell 4 red zone end zone targets, Collins 5. First reads, Dell were 36, Collins was 37. Their deep targets 11-6. I mean, coming in, here's the big thing because you have Dalton Schultz there. Dalton Schultz's target rate with both of those guys on the field was only 19%, and Robert Woods' role will now be assumed by Stephon Diggs. That target share was only 21%. When you're putting these 2 guys and you're drafting these 2 guys, are they relatively the same in your mind? Based on some of these numbers, based on them being on the field together, it was actually, it says in the 7 games, they played an equal 50% snap share. How do you take these guys? Their targets were 52 and 52, receptions 37-37, receiving yards 601, 562, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. Their catch rate 71%, 66%. Are these 2 guys 2 of the safest guys to pick in fantasy this year?
I think Nico is. As far as Tank Dell, I don't know where his leg is at after that gunshot. That was the only thing that gives me pause.
Oh, Brian, we thought you were talking about the break, not the gunshot.
Yeah, I ain't worried about that break. Those things hit. But yeah, he had a rough offseason, that's for sure. But that's why we're going to Nico. I like Nico coming out of college. Honestly, I loosely heard of Tank Dell coming out of college, and he was a ultimate surprise to me last year. I didn't see that coming, so that's why I'm just more familiar with Nico, and I trust him a little more. They do have potential to actually go off this year since their running game was pretty much non-existent last year. Now they got Joe Mixon. So the teams were dropping everybody back, and they were still doing that damage. They weren't even playing that run. Now they have to. So, I mean, they're not going to, drop 8 back in coverage anymore, So, I mean, either one's got the potential to go off, but I would lean towards Nico.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Brian, man. I mean, Sean, I agree with you as well. I think they're both interchangeable. I think you're going to see about pretty much the same between the 2 of them. It'll be like a 50% target share, obviously, including the other guys on the field. But I think, if anything, a lot of the times when these young quarterbacks come in with young receivers, they kind of, because they're going through the same process together and they've kind of created this special bond. These guys kind of look for each other. I think C.J. Stroud early and often was looking for Tank Dell, but I know it happened with Tank Dell out at the end of last year, but it's Nico Collins really came on strong at the end of the year. And I just think that connection is going to continue into next season. I think Nico Collins is the best red zone target for CJ Stroud. He's a big guy. He has great hands. He's a great route runner as well. And I think CJ Stroud will probably with Stephon Diggs. I think CJ Stroud Tank Dell will probably be interchangeable with Stephon Diggs as wide receiver 2 and that's in the slot. And I think that'll probably hurt his projection just a little bit. I also do worry about those guys like the Jaden Reeds, the Tank Dells, the Zay Flowers. Those guys were a little bit small. I just worried about those guys getting hurt. Obviously we've seen it time and time again with Tank Dell, for instance, got injured last year. You just got to, when those guys, Jaden Reed people are like, well, he didn't get hurt last year. It took him a little while to get on the field last year. He didn't really play a full entire season. He was not part of the Packers offense early and often. He came along as the season went on. I wouldn't be surprised at all if a guy like Jaden Reed got hurt next year either. I mean, you guys, we have to remember, we look at these guys and we're like, well, 5'10", 195 pounds isn't a small guy. Well, he is when he's playing on a field with a bunch of 340, 350, 280, 290 pound men. And eventually those guys get hit enough by those guys. Eventually they'll lose some time. They'll miss some time. But I think if anything, Nico Collins is just a tiny bit ahead of Tank Dell for me. And they're probably in the same tier.
Okay. And you know what? I believe I have them really – I got Collins higher than Tank Dell, but not by much, by a couple slots there.
Yeah, so we all pretty much agree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty close with that.
One thing I'll tell you guys right now, all you guys watching, one person I will not be touching at fantasy football is Stephon Diggs. No, thank you. I will not be going anywhere near that guy.
I will not either.
We could sit here and talk about the reasons why, but that this will become a Stephon Diggs show. So let's get it. Sean, I know there's a couple guys. I don't know if you want to do tier 4 right now, or you want to talk about some of the guys you were talking about earlier today that were like sleepers going into the season, especially some of these young guys.
We can take this wherever we want, and just so you know, I do have Devonta Smith at 22 on my list right now, and I will tell you this. The Devontae Adams thing from earlier, he did finish 12th overall last year. I don't know that his quarterback situation got that much better. Gardner Minshew did lead Michael Pittman to a decent year last year, 1,000 yards, 80 catches. Touchdowns were down for Michael Pittman with Gardner Minshew. He seemed to garner his tight ends a little bit more, but I had him a little bit lower because I just don't trust that quarterback situation, and he's getting a little older. I'm not saying he still can't perform, but that was my basis of just putting him down a little bit. I don't like the Raiders at all, and he's got Luke Getsy, for the love of Christ.
Let me give you, Brian. I'll ask you. Here's my tier 3, because like I said, I do 6 for each tier. So obviously I have a little. My tier 3 would basically line up with Sean's tier 4, but. I think I ended off the last tier 2 with DJ Moore. So my tier 3 the next 6 guys would be Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, Drake London, George Pickens, DK Metcalf, and Michael Pittman.
Is that 6 through 12?
That's 12 through 18.
Okay, so we're on the same page. Here,
if those guys I just mentioned, and I think they're pretty much in the same tier for you, Sean. Those guys are all kind of like, if you look at their numbers last year, they're all kind of the same production. Now, obviously, this is where the real fantasy experts win their league. Is Drake London's target share going to skyrocket because he finally got a quarterback, or is George Pickens going to take the next step in his career and be one of the best receivers in the NFL? Like those kind of, is Anthony Richardson going to end up being a good passer in the NFL? Michael Pittman, who sneaks into that tier 2. This is where you win and lose your fantasy league, guys. These tier 3 and tier 4 players. This is where you make it or break it.
If you notice, go ahead, Brian.
I'm not as high on Drake London as most people. I've never really cared for that guy. I know when Kirk Cousins went to Atlanta, he specifically asked for Darnell Mooney. He wanted him on his team. I don't know if Kyle Pitts is actually going to blow up now and take some of that workload away. I know he had a good rookie season, but he's been tapered off ever since. Mm-hmm. He has terrible target to reception ratio, but I think his balls were ultimately just uncatchable. So, I mean, he might still be getting that workload. He might just, Kyle Pitts might absorb it from Drake London. Darnell Mooney's actually over there now too. So that's why I would put Drake London a little lower. Chris Olave, I love that pick. I love that early in that tier. I do like Michael Pittman a little higher. He's probably in my tier 2. DK, love that one. Smith and Jigba, even though he's with DK, would be up there for me. I think he's going to have a breakout year. I don't know where I would put Godwin. I think he's still down on the list a little bit. As far as George Pickens is a huge one. That's a very good talking point. If Russell Wilson plays, he's going to get a lot of targets. If Justin Fields plays, he's going to get a lot of targets, but they're going to be a lot less catchable. So you know, I like George Pickens, but he's not a yards after catch kind of guy. He's I'm going to catch everything thrown to me and just go down.
Well, I'm going to touch on a couple of these guys, and Chris Godwin is a really good one because he's one of the most underrated, undervalued players in fantasy. And I did put on there, Kyle touched on George Pickens, and George Pickens is another one who checks a lot of boxes. 4.4 speed, a sub 5% drop rate. He's also he's first in yards per reception at 18.1. Health, 35 games. He's played all 35 games in his NFL career.
He's a
He was
dog.
28th in targets last year at 104, but he was third in yards per target at 10.8. And Arthur Smith is probably going to wind up putting him and say that AJ Brown role. I think wheels up for George Pickens this year. That's
Yeah.
Him and Smith,
Yeah,
I think are going to make the biggest jumps.
who's that?
I
What'd you say?
I said him and Smith and Jigba to me are going to be the two that make the biggest jump, I believe. Aside from the rookies, that is. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be ahead of both of them.
Yeah, I mean, if George Pickens continues to progress like we saw that he did in his first years, I think George Pickens can end up being a top 10 fantasy receiver in the NFL. The thing that scares me is exactly what Brian talked about. How much are we going to see this? So this week it's Russell Wilson. Next week it's Justin Fields. Next week it's Russell Wilson. I mean, that's what scares me. I do think George Pickens would get his own either way. Like we saw DJ Moore had a great season with Justin Fields last year. It's not like the guy is incapable of getting wide receivers the ball. I still think George Pickens have a good season, but it definitely would hurt his ceiling, his peak. If you say, you keep bringing up Jack Smith and Jigma. Let me ask you this, Brian. So
Yeah.
that was my tier 3, right? So Sean, you and I are pretty much lined up here, right?
Mhm.
And I also, Chris Godwin is always, to me, every single season is a sleeper because I think people sleep on him. And
Yeah.
Chris Godwin is a great number 3 receiver for any fantasy team out there. I have won championships with Chris Godwin on my team. I love the guy. So here would be my next 6, right? So we stopped at Michael Pittman. So 19 through 24, whatever you want to call it, for me would be, this is where Nico Collins comes in, Deebo Samuel, Devonta Smith, Cooper Kupp, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, and Tank Dell. And you know what? The later on, the lower down the list I go, I throw a little more guys into my tiers now because we don't have 50 tiers, right? So I could even put guys like Christian Kirk and Jaden Reed in that conversation as well.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about that?
I got Jaden Reed. I believe I got him at 30. This one's a little smaller.
Sean, you and I lists. I wrote this out a couple of days ago. I went through all the receivers. I looked at their potential quarterback situation, their stats last year. Your and I lists are not very far off. And like I said, for the most part, guys, I mean, these are pretty much self-explanatory, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody out there is like, I got Romeo Doubs in tier 1, right? Like it's pretty, most of it's pretty. How do you feel about that tier 4, Brian? Do you think besides Jack Smith and Jigma?
I didn't write mine down, but I forgot all about Zay Flowers. I love that guy. Yeah, he's great. He has,
Well, he's really the only guy, right? I mean,
he's the only guy. He was like, even Hollywood Brown, was excelling in that offense, and he went to Arizona and just a lot had to do with Kyler Murray going away, or being hurt. But I mean, he was irrelevant. I mean, Lamar Jackson's kind of the same guy. He's got like his tight end and he's got one receiver. He's going to keep going to that and he's going to keep running the ball. That's what he does. I mean, Zay Flowers is awesome. And when he fumbled in that playoff game, I mean, you could really tell that affected him. He's got that dog in him. I mean, he's going to do nothing but get better and better as his career goes on. I love that guy. But as far as John, your list here, I got Amari Cooper way higher than you. That's about the only one that I really have different. I love that guy. I didn't realize it until last year, honestly, that he was that good. I picked him up in like round 8 of my fantasy league, and he just, I'm pretty sure he had a 50-point week. He's good,
he was good late. Awesome. He seemed to be better with Joe Flacco than he was with Deshaun Watson.
I will tell you this fantasy nugget on Amari Cooper. In the few weeks he did play with Deshaun Watson, he averaged 18 fantasy points a week. That is pretty awesome.
Sean, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If say that Rashee Rice does not, and I think you've told me earlier today that Rashee Rice is not supposed to be facing suspension this year, but
His
rather
court
next
date is
year.
December 9th.
Yeah, and obviously the NFL could still suspend him for or even the team can suspend him if they want. But say he does not get suspended, where do you think Rashee Rice would be? What, tier 3, 4?
I would probably put him in between 18 and 26. I would probably, honestly, I'd probably put him higher than Keenan Allen just because, I mean, he's going to have more opportunity. Although they have Marquise Hollywood Brown there, and I really think Mahomes and Hollywood Brown, they're going to be primed for, could be something special. And Xavier Worthy showing out in camp too. So they actually have some mouths there, but I still do think, like, is he going to be the alpha male, or is there going to be a connection with Hollywood Brown? Because Hollywood Brown, when he was healthy with Kyler Murray, he finished 5th in fantasy points, dude. And his new quarterback, I think, might be a little bit better than Kyler Murray and Pat Mahomes.
How old is Hollywood Brown?
Shit, he played at Oklahoma with
Baker.
Caleb Williams?
Yeah, it might have been Caleb Williams. He's not that old. He's only been in the league. His problem is he can't stay healthy either. The guy can't stay on the damn field.
I like Rashee Rice, though. I mean, I think he was their leading receiver in Kansas City last year, wasn't he? Even over Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he was just under 1,000. I think Travis Kelce ended with 1,000 yards, didn't he? I think he did.
I don't know. I thought Rashee Rice only had like 900 something. So
yeah, he had like 980.
Yeah, he was just below 1,000, but he really didn't start coming on until week 9, 10, maybe 10 through 17.
Yeah, he gained some trust with him when Kelce got swifted.
Well, and once again, Brian, not just the trust, but the guys that were playing in front of Rashee Rice should not even be in the NFL. God, the Chiefs and the receiver situation is brutal, man. They got a guy.
Big flop. Yeah,
I know he's not. And Dustin Jones, Dustin, you're watching. MJ, Marvin Harrison Jr. I have ranked number 10 on my list. You asked where he was. I can flip that page open. I have him, I believe. Yeah, I have him at number 10. Elite talent and pure opportunity, which he's going to have. And guys, don't sleep on Michael Wilson, because that guy is really good at football too. That Arizona offense, we talked about this. Their defense sucks. But that offense, Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., I love Trey Benson. And if James Conner's out there, there's weapons. There's things. And Kyler Murray is not a bum. He's the Dachshund of the desert.
He is no scrub. I still like Kyler Murray better than guys like Tua Tagovailoa, AJ Hurts, those guys who have played well in the NFL, but since they've been here have been surrounded by nothing but prime talent. I think if Kyler Murray can find a way to stay healthy, I think he is actually one of the top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL. I do.
Yeah, I love running quarterbacks in fantasy football. I mean, Lamar Jackson. I even take Justin Fields, but I love them guys. They're fantasy dynamos. I mean, they're a lot better than, say, Kirk Cousins, who's going to get you 18 points. These guys can go off and get you 30. I mean, they won't have near the game, but fantasy-wise, they get you all the points.
Hey, Brian, you're 100% right. That's why Josh Allen is the best in fantasy football, because he does it with his legs and his arm. He's like Patrick Mahomes mixed with Lamar Jackson. If you go look at his metrics, if you go look at Josh Allen's numbers, what he's done in the NFL and his first, 4 years now? 5 years? I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Absolutely amazing. I think he has more yards per rush than Lamar Jackson or something. I don't know. It's some ridiculous statistic. If you go look at his metrics, he is absolutely an amazing fantasy player. I never take quarterbacks high, ever. And I took, and Sean and I's fantasy league last year, I ended up taking Josh Allen, I think in the third or fourth round, because if there's one quarterback for me that makes a difference in fantasy, you look at most of these guys per week, if you take their averages per week, there's a difference between guys like Joe Burrow and Jared Goff. It's a difference of like 2 points a week. But Josh Allen is an absolute beast, man. I think that guy will be a top touchdown scorer in the league for a long time, as long as he's healthy.
100%. And I'm going to touch on here. We got a Maserati Marv, a shout out. I want to touch on Rome Odunze really quick, just so people can realize what an actual beast this guy was in college last year. And I might have been a little off on him because I wanted the Bears to draft somebody else. This guy was in deep passes, 20 yards plus. He was number one in targets at 49, number one in receptions at 23, first in yards, 783, first in contested catches at 9, first in first downs over 20 yards at 23. He had 0 drops of 49 targets on deep balls. That's legitimately insane, guys. 0 drops and 49 long balls. Let's see. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. I'm just trying to read my notes here. His 2023 stats, he had 140 targets, which was first overall, 92 receptions, which was second, 1,640 receiving yards.
1,600 yards.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane.
14 touchdowns, which was second. Let's just say this guy was an absolute monster. Monster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Isn't it funny, guys, how when I going into that season, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm the biggest college football fan in the world, but I feel like I know enough and I
Sure.
watch enough and I check in and check the highlights and such. But man, I was thinking of guys like Keon Coleman and obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze just came out of nowhere, and I have done nothing but fall in love with this guy. He is an absolute professional, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. He is one of the most well-spoken young men I've ever seen get drafted in the NFL. And it's not just about your athletic skill, your athletic talent. It's about what you got between the ears. And I don't think it's going to take Rome Odunze very long to get accumulated to this offense. As a matter of fact, in the second half of the season, I would watch out for Rome Odunze in fantasy as well. If somehow he's still out there on the waiver wire or something, and you're going into weeks 4 or 5. If you got a place to stash him until week 7, 8, I would 100% have no problem doing that.
I have a question for you guys, and I want you guys to answer this, and then I'm gonna read you guys some numbers here. What are your thoughts on Malik Neighbors? Go ahead, Brian. Start us off.
I love the dude. Honestly, I think he's a star in the making. He's gonna hit a lot quicker than Odunze will, just because he doesn't have anybody in front of him. Odunze is more of a dynasty pick for me. If you can get him in the dynasty league, go for it. But you're pretty much sitting him like Kyle was saying for a while. I mean, if not this whole season. But Neighbors, he's got the speed. He's got that dog in him. He's got the vertical, the hands. And dude is a freak. I mean, he's everything that you want in a receiver. The Neighbors has got it. I like Odunze more. I was like in the long run, but Neighbors. I mean, I think he's got potential top 10 receiver on him this year.
Well, let me ask you guys this then. So, I agree with you about everything you said, Brian. I think Malik Neighbors he has a very specific skill set that's very tough to stop. And the only thing that scares me about Malik Neighbors, I think, is the same thing that scares all of us, right? I think it's Daniel Jones. If Malik Neighbors had been drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, he's in all of our tier 1, tier 2 receiving.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, not even close, right? But here's the question. A lot of people, the experts were comparing Rome Odunze to Larry Fitzgerald when he was coming into the draft, right? Just that big burly. He's got those hands that he doesn't drop anything. He's a dog. He doesn't get hurt a lot. And a lot of people were comparing Malik Neighbors to Antonio Brown. So if both those guys, if Rome Odunze ended up being the next Larry Fitzgerald and Malik Neighbors ended up being the next Antonio Brown, who would you prefer?
Larry Fitzgerald.
Sean?
Larry Fitzgerald.
Now, obviously, you got to compare that to when they were in their prime for the years that they played, because Antonio Brown could have played a lot longer than he did if he wasn't ahead.
I'm a little biased on that because Larry Fitzgerald is probably my favorite wide receiver in the history of football. I love that guy so much. I was going to say, I mean, I agree with you. I think I'd rather have Larry Fitzgerald, but you can't go wrong with either of these guys, right? I mean, Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors. This might be one of the best wide receiver classes we have ever seen in the history of the NFL. I mean, you have Marvin Harrison Jr., who I like to compare to Justin Jefferson. You got Rome Odunze, who was being compared to Larry Fitzgerald, and Malik Neighbors was being compared to Antonio Brown. If these three guys end up being what we all expect them to be, this is probably going to go down as the best wide receiver class of all time. And you know what? Guys like Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, those guys are no scrubs either, man. It's going to be. That's why when we were talking earlier on this podcast about a month ago when it happened, when the Texans traded for
Stephon Diggs, it just didn't make that much sense to me.
Right.
You know, a lot of people give me a lot of pushback on that, but Stephon Diggs is 32 years old now. He's been a distraction in the locker room. I said that earlier, a month ago, and people were like, not really. Well, he's already been in a fight in training camp. I mean, and we were coming into the Houston Texans are a very young team, and we were coming into a draft in which they had, it's probably the best wide receiver draft in the history of the NFL. I was just surprised to see that they wouldn't go after a second or third round guy, a guy like, even if maybe somebody like Ladd McConkey fell to them somehow. I thought for sure the Texans would have tried to find that tight end or that wide receiver 3 in the draft.
I'm pretty surprised they just gave up on John Mechie. Did they release him?
No, he's still on the team.
He's still on Houston? Good. I'm gonna blow your guys' mind right now with some Malik Neighbors numbers. You ready for this? Malik Neighbors is the only wide receiver in college football to hit these marks in a single season since 2017. 1,500 yards, 3.5 yards per route run, 30 missed tackles forced. Now, check this out. In Marvin Harrison's career, he had 16. Neighbors had 30 last year. Speaks for itself. If you look at his work ethic, and honestly, the only SEC wide receivers to eclipse 1,500 yards in their junior campaigns, 2 of them are currently in the NFL. 1 of them just got drafted. Justin Jefferson and Amari Cooper. This guy's setting in some elite class, man. He looks really good, and honestly, I've been watching Giants camp. Dude, he's making some sensational catches, dude. This guy, it's wheels up, man. This guy is really
he's gonna have to. He's gonna have to, right, Brian? I mean, he's getting if Daniel Jones is gonna be the guy throwing him the ball, or Tommy DeVito, I don't care, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick one by their toe. If one of those guys is throwing him the ball, he's gonna have to make some miraculous catches this year. Absolutely, 100%.
And he's a little bit bigger. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. So I mean, he's not the tallest, but 200 pounds for a wide receiver isn't.
He plays a lot bigger, but he's going to be going up against a lot better corners than anybody the Giants have. That's the thing. Giants, I mean, they drafted that guy out of UK. I'm a UK fan, Kentucky, but he wasn't good. They were excited to get him, I think, in the 3rd round, and that dude couldn't cover a cold, he's so bad. I don't know why they were so excited to get him. I was hoping the Bears would dodge him, and they absolutely did. No, I couldn't have been happier. So I mean, that's the guy he's going up against in college. It's not surprising, or going up against in camp. It's not surprising that he's beating fast. He's going to excel.
We get a lot of these. Real quick, sorry, Sean. A lot of these comments coming in talking about Rome Odunze, that he's the best player in the draft. Listen, guys, I'm the biggest Bears fan you'll ever meet in your entire life. I love Rome Odunze. I think he's going to be a great player for the Bears for a long time, and he's going to end up being their number 1 receiver at some point. But and I know, like what Sean said, Marvin Harrison, 16. Marvin Harrison is not a tackle, but he is a guy who goes downfield and gets open, and he does it. He's going to do it time. Marvin Harrison Jr., for me personally, guys, is still the best receiver in this draft, and he's probably going to end up being, if he is what I think he's going to be, what I project him to be, he's going to end up being one of the best receivers ever to play football. And it's kind of the same thoughts we had on Justin Jefferson, guys. Like, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is no scrub, guys. Do not sleep on that guy. I think ultimately his career numbers will probably end up being better than Rome Odunze's. Now, like we said, 2 totally different skill sets. I think that you're going to see a lot of 50, 60-yard bomb touchdowns to Marvin Harrison. I don't think you're going to see as much of that to Rome Odunze as much as Rome Odunze catching an 8-yard pass and taking it 60 yards. I think you'll see a lot more of that. But Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, if you guys go do yourselves a favor of Google Marvin Harrison training camp news and watch that guy just burn every single member of the secondary on the Arizona Cardinals play in and play out. He's going to be a very, very good player in the NFL, guys.
I agree. I have a question, because we talked about this, Kyle, you and I. Going into this season, everyone has CeeDee Lamb as the number 1 overall fantasy wide receiver. And I mean, last year he was 2nd in receiving yards, 1st in receptions, 1st in touchdowns, 1st in targets. His quarterback did really well. We all know how hard it is to repeat that monster year. That was an absolutely monster year, 1,700 receiving yards. I mean, just absolutely monster year. If you were not going to say CeeDee Lamb is number 1, would you say Tyreek Hill, Amon, Garrett Wilson? Give me an outside pick, a surprise pick, your surprise pick that could be the number 1 overall fantasy wide receiver this year.
Brian, you go ahead, man.
Tyreek Hill. I took him in 2 of my fantasy leagues last year. I was in 3. I won 2 of the 3. So I mean, I had Justin Jefferson. The other one, he went away and came back. But yeah, I mean, I'm all in Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
I used to have stipulations with people I just didn't like. Like personally, I hate Tyreek Hill. But I started drafting him.
Brian, you and Sean could have a cup of coffee, talk about how much you guys hate Tyreek Hill. This guy talks about that more than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a linebacker, I'd put a little extra juice on. But I mean, both fantasy wise, he kills for me.
I agree.
Yeah,
I just don't root for that guy.
I agree with Brian. I think the obvious pick is Tyreek Hill, because I think if anybody is capable of reaching that 2,000-yard mark besides Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb, I think it would be Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
But my sleeper pick, surprise pick, is we already talked about, right? I mean, if Garrett Wilson gets a full year of I mean, just go look back at every year Aaron Rodgers. I understand Aaron Rodgers is older now; he's not the same guy. But go look back and look at every year Aaron Rodgers had with Devontae Adams, and go look at Devontae Adams' stats. I mean, the target share alone. I mean, how many? You guys remember watching those games, especially as Bears fans? 17 targets for Devontae Adams, 15 targets for Devontae Adams, 15 targets for Devontae. Every game, 7 catches, 8 catches, 9 catches, 100 yards, 200 yards. I think he's going to do the same thing with Garrett Wilson. I think right now Garrett Wilson, with the trajectory he's on, he might actually could end up being a better player than Devontae Adams. I know that's crazy to say, because Devontae Adams has accomplished a lot in the NFL. But man, I think Garrett Wilson is absolutely amazing. And the fact that he could get 2 1,000-yard seasons, his first 2 rookie and sophomore season, with absolutely. Sean, what was the list of quarterbacks again? Can you go over that list
for
Garrett Wilson? The quarterbacks to have 2,000 yards in his first 2 years of his career with
where'd I have that? They're not. It's not very good.
Mike White, Joe Flacco,
Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, Mike White, Joe Flacco, Chris Streveler.
Yeah, you know what, guys? As bad as that list is, the guy he spent a majority of his time with last year, I think Zach Wilson is the worst. I think he was the worst. I mean, that guy, absolutely awful. The fact that the Jets never ended up picking up a quarterback last year, especially like week 5 or 6 when they were still in it, their defense was playing really well. The team was still motivated. They still had their heads in the game. And they decided to stick with Zach Wilson. That I will never, ever, ever understand that thought process. I just don't get it. Zach Wilson is awful. He does not belong in the NFL. He doesn't.
Yeah, who's he backing up now?
He's in Denver.
I think he's in Denver. Yeah, I think Sean Payton decided to.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
at least
Bo
they
Nix.
got Bo Nix, I guess.
Man,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel.
a season for them. They're going to go ahead and start their rookie. I mean, they really have no other option there.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? Right. And I think Sean Payton, if anything, he's the best person in the NFL to bring somebody like that along. Right. You might as well. But man, I can't. I'm not going to say I feel bad for Broncos fans because they had John Elway and Terrell Davis and all those great years, but the last few years for Broncos fans has been absolutely brutal. Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson. I mean, oh my God, it had to be. How much did the Russell Wilson? How much money? What was the trade? And how much money did they?
It was like 83 or 93 million or something like that. Funny.
Yeah, they had to eat, right?
Really big number.
And didn't they also trade like 3 first-round picks for him?
Yep.
Oh man, I mean that had.
Worst trade ever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Carolina Panthers fans might tell you no, that's not the worst trade in NFL history, but it's got my vote for sure, man. Russell Wilson was bad in Denver. Nathaniel Hackett, that was just a mess, an absolute mess. I mean, that might be the most embarrassing year of any football team in the history of football. It was bad.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to watch every Broncos game because my wife is a Broncos fan. So it's
God. Well, at least you get to pick at your wife.
Right.
Half of my family's from Denver, so I grew up dealing with Broncos fans. I got a question though. I'm going to throw one out there. Let's talk sleepers really quick. One of my favorite sleepers. You just touched on this quarterback, Josh Allen. I got laughed at, I believe, by Dustin and your brother when we were talking about this the other day. But I'm going with Curtis Samuel as one of my top sleepers and a guy who's going to produce. And I'll tell you why. Diggs and Davis, gone. There are tons of targets available. Dalton Kincaid is there. You're gonna have James Cook out of the backfield. Coleman is an unproven rookie, does look like a stud, could definitely contribute. The last time Samuel was with Joe Brady, he had 7 touchdowns. He finished the season with 1,051 receiving yards, and he finished as wide receiver 25. I love Curtis Samuel in this situation because there's just nobody there, and Josh Allen is his quarterback. I do think your prototypical X receiver is going to be Keon Coleman, who's going to try and take the top off the defense at least to start. But your possession receiver, the guy who he's going to be looking, I'm going early, and I'm going to say Curtis Samuel.
Brian, who's your sleeper, man?
I've got 2. You touched on one of them earlier, Kyle. He's a rookie, Ladd McConkey. They've got to throw to somebody. They have nobody there. I know they drafted the other guy last year. I forgot his name out of TCU, but he's proven to be, inept. So Ladd McConkey's going to get the lion's share of the workload there. Also got going back to Denver, Tim Patrick. He seems to be healthy. He hasn't been healthy in a couple of years, but when he's there, he's a stud. With Jerry Jeudy gone, Cortland Sutton, I mean, he's solid. I mean, that dude's a touchdown machine.
Yeah.
But Tim Patrick is probably my bigger sleeper there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have kind of like, Sean, for instance, I'm looking at this, I like to buy these fantasy magazines just to look to see what all these different guys think. By the way, there's about 50 guys in each magazine. So it's you kind of try to find the guys you side with the most. But right now, currently, they have Curtis Samuel ranked number 47. So, I mean, he's not as much of a sleeper as these guys think, obviously. That's pretty high up there. But I mean, for me personally, I think a lot of people seem to think that Jordan Addison's going to take some huge step backwards because of the quarterback situation. I'm not saying that Jordan Addison's going to be amazing this year because obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Sam Darnold. But I do think that Jordan Addison is going to be kind of like the security blanket for whoever's playing quarterback for the Vikings. I think that he's going to have a really good season. Jordan Addison's also going to continue to have a really good season. I think his career is going to continue to go in the right direction. Another guy who I think is being overlooked and is overlooked every year for me personally is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk just always seems to be the rock, right? He's always like that security blanket for whatever team he's on. And last year for Sean, what were his numbers before he ended up missing, I think, the last 6 games of the season last year. But before that, Christian Kirk's numbers were absolutely phenomenal.
Christian Kirk was I believe it was 56 catches, 757 yards, and 5 touchdowns, and he missed the end of the season. He would have blew past Calvin Ridley if he would have stayed healthy.
Yeah, so I mean, well on his way to over 1,000 yards, well on his way to double-digit touchdowns. I think Christian Kirk is going to play a huge role for them.
I love Christian Kirk.
The Jaguars, yeah. And you know what? I think eventually guys like Brian Thomas and Gedabos will find their own and they'll start to settle into that offense. But especially often and early, I think that Christian Kirk is going to have a great start to the fantasy season. I think he's going to end up being a top 10 fantasy receiver for the first 4 weeks of the season until Trevor Lawrence gets comfortable with those guys like Brian Thomas.
Here, I have to go back to my boy Brian here because I was trying to keep his name off the show because I know some of my fellow fantasy friends are watching that I'll be going against, but I can't agree with you more with Ladd McConkey, man. If everyone remembers what Allen did in the slot, I mean, it's wheels up. I am falling in love with this guy. I'm watching him in training camp. This guy is a great route runner. He's got great hands. Dude, Ladd McConkey's my guy. I got to stop gushing over him right now, but I couldn't agree with you more, Brian. I love that dude, man.
Yeah, Brian, I think by the first or second show I was ever on CSP podcast, I think, Brian, you were on it. And this was like the middle of the off season.
Yeah,
I talked about how I would have if the Bears decided not to go after a receiver in the first round of the NFL draft, and obviously at that time we didn't know exactly where any of these guys were going to fall. This was really early, but I like Ladd McConkey a lot. I agree with both of you guys. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season. I actually have him over 1,000 yards as well. And another guy that we talked about, obviously, it's a different conversation for a different time. I think that show we talked about Braden Fisk a little bit, the defensive tackle that the Rams ended up drafting, but I wouldn't have mind seeing him in a Bears uniform either. But yeah, I think overall I think all of us kind of agree on not only our fantasy rankings but our sleepers. You know, with how much is at your disposal nowadays to look at fantasy football with the rankings and the magazines and all the websites and everything. I think a lot of people are probably have pretty close to the same thought process.
I'll give you one more a guy I really love, and he
Don, I don't like that smirk on your face.
I was laughing.
You say Tyler Scott, I'm
Are you
driving
coming out with
over.
Chase Claypool?
It is Tyler. No, it's not Tyler Scott. Did everyone watch what 32-year-old Adam Thielen did in the offense of Carolina last year?
Yep.
And everyone knows who Deontay Johnson is, and the guy's a sensational wide receiver.
Mhm.
Dave Canellis is going to turn that dude into an absolute PPR monster this year in that offense, dude.
He's ranked right before Curtis Samuel on his magazine.
Is he really?
He's 45. Curtis Samuel's 47.
Dude, I'm telling you, he's still in his prime. He's 28 years old. I mean, Bryce Young resurrected the ghost of Adam Thielen last year and took this guy to a phenomenal season. I mean, Deontay Johnson is more athletic, better hands, can get open down the field. Deontay Johnson, man, another guy, wheels up, dude. Don't sleep on him. I would love to have him as my number 3 with Ladd McConkey as my number 2 every week from week 1. Let's go.
Oh, here, let me real quick. Let me give you guys here. I'm going to go over this real quick. So there are 2 MVP candidates. They only have 2 in this magazine. So number 1 is Tyreek Hill. Number 2 is CeeDee Lamb. Right? Those are both. We talked about that. We wouldn't be surprised at all if those guys ended up 1 and 2 this year. They have 3 breakout players on the second page here. So I guess you'd say tier 2, tier 3. Drake London, George Pickens, and Zay Flowers. We all talked about that, right? Their first sleeper, and I swear I did not know this. I didn't even look at this before I said Christian Kirk is their first sleeper. Their most underrated.
I don't know how he's a sleeper. That
Their
doesn't make any sense.
But I think because they're saying they have him ranked at 28, but they wouldn't be surprised if he finished like top 15. I think that's what they mean by sleep. Their most underrated player they have on this list, which Brian already said, was DeAndre Hopkins. He's their most underrated player. Their boomer bust player is Rashee Rice. Their value pick is our 2 value picks are Jacoby Myers and Christian Watson. Their second sleeper is Rashid Shaheed.
Saints.
Thanks.
Dude, get this, guys. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Next to Mike Williams, it just says injured. You couldn't make this up.
Injured.
That's well played.
That's awesome. And then I'm not gonna lie, guys. They have their deep sleeper. The first deep sleeper they have listed on here is Jermaine Burton. And I'd be lying if I told you I knew anything about this guy.
Jermaine Burton was drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're saying he's going to take the Tyler Boyd role in the offense.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a later pick, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. I didn't. He's 6. It says he's pretty small, 6 foot, 195 pounds.
Hey, and for my boy Dustin Jones out there, you just watched Deontay Johnson. He's got a path to 150 targets this year, bro. I'm telling you.
Listen. We all love Dustin here on the show, but he also said Zach Wilson's numbers weren't that bad last year. Well, Dustin, if you can find me a GM in the NFL that's like, hey, we want Zach Wilson to be our starter going into this year, I'll give you $1 million.
I'll give you another guy I like for a comeback to have a really, really, really big season. Scary Terry with Jaden Daniels and that new offense over there. I mean, Cliff Beck. I can't say his name. Cliff Kingsbury over there. He's one of my favorite guys that I wouldn't mind having.
No, I don't want to give away all my secrets on the show, guys, but Jahan Dotson is one of my sleepers. That's a guy I'm going to have to really close. I like Dotson a lot.
But Jay McMillan. Jay McMillan for rookie for the Bucks. They say he's been going off. Yeah, he was with Odunze at Washington.
Yeah, and that's why no one heard about the other kid. What's his name?
Polk.
Polk. Yeah, Polk out of Washington. He's another guy. I know that this New England offense is not supposed to be really good, but Javon Baker and Polk, I think they got 2 pretty decent rookie wide receivers, and I got some great numbers on both of those guys too. but Hunter Henry's still there. Drake May actually has some people to get the ball to. You know, we'll see. I'm not sold on Gerard Mayo, number one. I think that guy's a loser, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, they actually, their highest ranked New England receiver is Demario Douglas at number 70. So they obviously do not think that there's going to be some phenomenal passing game going on in New England. They also have Xavier Legette at 71, which I think is a little bit too low. I actually like Xavier Legette a lot. I think he has the physical ability to come into the NFL and make an impact. I mean, the guy's 6'3", 230 pounds. He's going to be tough to stop. And then Sean, their last ranked receiver in here at number 72 is Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson?
Yeah.
I love me some Michael Wilson, man. I really love me some Michael.
How do you guys, Brian, especially you, I only ask you this question because you said that your wife's, I'm sure you have to hear about him all the time. Where do you think Marvin Mims, actually go rank the Denver Broncos receivers for me?
Honestly, I would probably go Cortland Sutton's obviously number one. And then I'll probably
big here.
Tim Patrick's probably going to solidify that number 2 spot. They have another guy that they said that's coming out of the woodwork. I was listening to their Sirius XM. They had interview at training camp, and somebody, I can't remember his name though. I've never heard of this guy, but he sounds like he's flirting with taking, going from 3 to 2.
Is it Roman Wilson? Didn't he get drafted by Denver? Or no, he's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Sorry.
he had an ankle injury in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think is he like out for the season? He was carted off out of practice.
Roman Wilson was?
Probably 4. He's more of a punt returner and kick returner than anything. He's
Marvin
definitely
Mims?
a speed guy. He just, for some reason, he didn't gel with Russell Wilson. The main thing was he got mic'd up or something like that by one of the fans, or they had a video of him when he was signing autographs after one of the games. And they, one of the fans, it was like a road game, and they said, "Hey, man, why didn't you have any catches?" He goes, "You got to throw me the ball." Russell Wilson just didn't like him. So I mean, right now he's probably number 4, but
Yeah,
I mean, he's got potential at the nose.
He's a guy. I mean, you probably know more about the Broncos. He's definitely a guy. I think Marvin Mims is the guy I'll keep my eye on. Like you said, and Dustin, when we were talking about Russell Wilson's numbers, we were talking about his numbers with Nathaniel Hackett. So like when he first got there after the trade, in which they lost 3 first-round draft picks and hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the second year, obviously, with Sean Payton. I think we all kind of expected Russell Wilson to get better, which he did. And actually, if you look at Russell Wilson's numbers last year, they actually weren't all that bad. But that's when they awarded Broncos fans with the news that they were going to get rid of him the better he played. So I'm just saying, as a Broncos fan for the last few years, it's been a brutal go.
So Kyle, I did this for the Twins, for you and Brandon. I just did this. Current number 1 in for the Los Angeles Chargers. You guys want some Josh Palmer? I'll give you some Josh Palmer. So I decided to go look him up, and Keenan Allen is now gone. They got 320 vacated targets in Los Angeles in that offense. Josh Palmer in 2023 finished number 18 in yards per target at 9.5, number 18 in yards per reception at 15.3. He was a top 12 fantasy player in 10 games. Contract year, Herbert, his ADP right now is 52. I still like McConkey a lot more than Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer also has an injury history, but there you go. Number 18 in yards per target, number 18 in yards per reception. I mean, that's not too shabby. And he has Justin Herbert. So what do you got? What do you got for me on Josh Palmer? What's that?
I don't love Josh Palmer. I'm not saying that I think that Josh Palmer is one of the best receivers in the NFL. But like you talked about, how many targets there are now vacated there. I think Josh Palmer is set up to, just solely based off opportunity, he's set up to have a good fantasy season. I agree with you. I like Ladd McConkey better than I do Josh Palmer. And when you say he's had slight injury past, that's putting it loosely. I mean, if he was on this list, it would say injured next to his name. He's had more injuries than I swear to God. I don't know what goes on in with the Chargers, whether it be San Diego or Los Angeles, but man, I swear when receivers get there, that somebody's just like bashing their ankles with a hammer while they walk by.
Isn't that where they punctured the quarterback's lung? Tyrod Taylor's lung, and the Chargers.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look at the guys. Okay, so let's go over the list, right? So Keenan Allen, we all love him to death. He's a Bear now. We'll never say anything bad about him, but he has had injury problems in the past.
He's gonna miss 2 to 4 games this year.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Mike Williams, right? Didn't that guy tear his ACL like the second there was a game 5 of his, or maybe?
Oh, he'll be out. That's Hunter Renfrow. That's a really great landing spot for him. Would be the New York Jets.
Josh Palmer, that guy has been hurt constantly since he's been there. Who was the other receiver that was there last year? Who was the number 3? I guess it would be number 4, right? Who was the other guy? Brian, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah,
I know who it is. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I cannot think of it at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, but that guy also, the reason that they originally said that he was going to be a pretty good player, and the reason he didn't pan out is because he also has dealt with injuries. I don't know what's going on with the Chargers, but they must be ignoring health when they draft their receivers, because those guys, they're constantly injured. I think Ladd McConkey is going to be the best receiver there, just solely based off of opportunity. At some point, he might be the only healthy receiver playing for them.
That's a very, very, very good possibility. Hopefully, he doesn't end up getting hurt. Yeah, I'm looking. Quentin Johnson. You know why? You know why we can't think of his name? Because he sucks.
Yeah, I think he's dealt with injuries as well, and that's not even the guy I was talking about. Sean, who else was on there when the depth chart last year?
The only players they have right now on this list is Palmer, some guy named Dolores Davis, Quentin Johnson, and Ladd McConkey. So this is their actual.
Can you switch that to 2023? Is there like an option?
Team page. Hold on,
depth
let me
chart.
go to 2023.
You guys know who I'm talking about. You've heard of him before. He also I think his name is Guyton. Jalen Guyton.
Oh yeah.
Jalen Guyton.
Yeah, he's another guy who I think they had really high expectations for him, but he can't stay on the field. It's just something with Chargers fan. There's like a curse going on over there or something, man.
You go to Dallas?
I think he's still there.
Guyton? He might be.
Yeah.
He might be.
Yeah, I believe he's still there. Maybe he's not. I don't know. I have to. Like I said, just ever since he had those few good games where he came up, played well, and then was out constantly. I just kind of gave up. I didn't really follow him anymore. But there's something going on with the Chargers where those guys just can't. If Ladd McConkey comes in there and gets injured in week 2, I'm never touching a receiver from the Chargers ever again in my fantasy career ever.
It sounds like me and my Chicago Bears jersey jinx. You know, I'm not getting Caleb Williams jersey until he signs an extension. I fall in love with these guys. You know, I got the Rex Grossman. I've got the Jay Cutler. I've got all these guys. The Trubisky on the wall back here. I've got Justin Fields over there.
Yeah, don't pick up Caleb Williams yet.
I'm not doing it. I'm not that jinx anymore. I'm not getting his. But yeah. Superstitions is all get up.
I mean, I think we did a good job of grinding our faces off tonight.
Oh yeah, grinding all the way off.
I think we lost Kyle. He might be back. He's got some technical. There he is.
There he is.
So do you think we grinded our faces off tonight?
Yeah, I'd say we did a pretty good job, man.
I mean, we can't predict what's going to happen with fantasy. We just got to keep doing what we're doing, you know.
Yeah. Keep on. We did not get a pop in from our fearless leader, Brandon Trax, in Ohio. Maybe he's drinking with the Bears right now. Who knows? But you guys want to touch on anything else as far as we go, fantasy wide receivers?
No, I mean, I'd say we pretty much covered all. Obviously, guys, if we had the time, we could talk about the top 100, and we could
Yeah,
talk about
100%.
fantasy football all day. But if you guys are listening out there, I'd say that those two lists that we made there, you get 2 or 3 of those guys on your fantasy team, you're going to be in good shape, man. I got to assure you that.
Yeah, no matter what you think about running backs, only take 2 of them in the first round. That's Saquon Barkley and the dude for San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey.
Hey, don't forget
Outside
about
of
Reese
those,
Lightning.
worth it in the first round.
Yeah, let's save that for next Wednesday, right, guys?
Yeah, next Wednesday we'll get into fantasy running backs. I got to send a big shout out to Dustin Jones, to John, to Bruja7, who actually, this was great. Thank you, anyone who showed up late tonight. Go back after the live show. Treat yourselves to the DJ Moore highlights and the Bajan interview. I promise you guys are going to really, really love that. I think I already sent a shout out to John, Dustin. We got, I'm just trying to go, Ant Mass, Simply Me, Stephanie, all of y'all. Thank you for joining us. We greatly, greatly appreciate it here on the podcast. Without you, there is no us. So thank you guys. So
and then real quick, guys, we want to give a shout out to obviously all of the same sponsors. You guys know them all, right? Bridges Scoreboard in Indiana. You got River Street Tavern in East Dundee. You got
Serendipity Ice Cream.
Serendipity Ice Cream, right across the street from
World of Wonders.
Yeah, right across the street from Bridges. You guys go out there, check them out. Good food, good environment. Same as River Street Tavern. We appreciate their help. Obviously, if it wasn't for those guys, this wouldn't be possible. So I appreciate you. Hey, Brian, it's nice to work with you again, man. Few and far between, but it's always a pleasure, brother.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know what happened here, but we just got like 15 comments from J2K Designs. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know why they just popped up here, but they just did. He agreed with us. Johnston is that guy is terrible because it's not injuries. He just can't create space.
Johnston and Jalen, Johnston and Jamison Williams' careers will be ruined by dropping the ball, man. It's just like Velus Jones. Those guys, you don't get many opportunities in the NFL, right? You guys do when the quarterback drops that ball in your hands from 40 yards away, you need to catch it.
It's got hands like feet. You need to play cornerback.
I meant to do this at the top of the show. Did you guys hear about this new the new onside kick rule in the NFL?
Yeah,
you have to predetermine whether or not you're going to kick it or not, so there's no surprise.
Yeah, and you can only do it if you're losing. Number one, and you have to do it only, I believe, in the fourth quarter. I think it was. Hey, whatever. NFL, leave the game alone.
The outside kick is basically going to be irrelevant. I mean, and even more than it already was, which was pretty tough.
And one more thing before we get out of here, the crocodile punter put up a 70-yard, 5.6 second punt. It was either yesterday or today. That guy's unbelievable. Just unbelievable what this guy can do. Oh, onside kicks are illegal before the fourth quarter. Teams must be losing to kick an onside kick. Teams must declare their intention to kick an onside kick and kick 2 officials beforehand. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? The last rule on here, it says 2 officials beforehand.
Maybe it's like a basketball where they pass the ball to the ref out of bounds, and he passes it right back. They got to kick it to him.
Bounce it off his face.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. People get mad when I say this. I like the new kickoff rules. I think they're actually pretty cool. I think it's cool that the kickoff will be like relevant in the NFL again. But yeah, that onside, that is so stupid. All that stuff they just did. That's the onside kick is basically obsolete now, right? And I kind of like the fact. I have no problem with it. I mean, I'm not saying I don't have a problem with the rule changes. I have no problem with the onside kick not being a thing. I like how the NFL is. You know what? You had 4 quarters to try to win this game.
Yeah.
If you score a touchdown with 40 seconds left and your last ditch effort is an onside kick, shame on you. You shouldn't be in that position anyway.
Yeah.
I love the NFL.
I've got 2 things.
It's do or die league.
I absolutely hate surprise and trick plays, anything like that. Philly special, throw that stuff out the window. If you can't beat somebody straight up, that's my style. You don't deserve to play with it anyway, right? But one thing that y'all are going to hate me for is who shockingly was good at onside kicks was Cody Parkey. if you go back and look at his career, that dude can nail an onside kick. I mean, he was as
Brian,
as he
who?
was hitting that goalpost.
Who?
I
Who are
don't
you
remember
talking
that.
about?
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah,
Tony, did that guy? Was
he
that
was
guy?
some dude that played for the
Who
Browns.
did he? Oh yeah.
He played for the Dolphins. He had some.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he was like on some reality or some TV show or something like that after
Yeah.
his.
Good Morning America.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, that's that guy.
It was an absolute pleasure, boys. And as we get out of here, as we get out of here.
Yeah, I didn't really think too much about it. I was too busy grinding my absolute face off in the off season.
Sorry, I had to do it one more time. I just love grinding my face off on the show with y'all, man. This was a lot of fun. Brian, welcome back. Until next week, once again, thank you guys all for the support. Our sponsors, our viewers, we can't do it without y'all, man. Trax, be safe out there in Canton. And
Yeah. Hey guys, it does whether it matters or not. Tomorrow, go Bears, bear down. Let's go.
Go Bears, that's right. We got a game tomorrow. Let's go. The Bajancy is open, baby. Everybody have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you guys soon. Don't forget to grind your face off at work tomorrow. Have a good one.